everybody, and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners work session and board agenda setting for Tuesday, October 27th, 2020. If you'd like to listen in via conference call, the phone number is 360-252-9020, and the PIN is 1234. I'm John Hutchings, the chair of the board. We also have Vice Chair Commissioner Ty Menser and Commissioner Gary Edwards. And we have the County Manager, Ramiro Chavez. We have Director Shelley Slaughter of PHSS. And we have our Thurston County Health Officer, Dr. Dimiana Abdulmalik. There's others that are, I'm sure, on the call, but we will have them chime in when it's appropriate. So with that, let's begin with a COVID-19 update.
Good morning, Commissioners. I wish I had a better report today, but COVID cases across Washington State and Thurston County continue to rise. In Washington State, the latest data indicates 103,500 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Washington to date, with 2,321 deaths. Here in Thurston County, we've had 1,766 Thurston County residents confirmed with COVID-19 to date, with 151 of those cases in the last week, making this, again, the highest week that we have ever experienced in Thurston County in terms of COVID case counts. There have been 151 of those cases, again, in the last week. In terms of testing, to date, there have been 56,461 tests, with 4.2% of those positive in the last week. We've had 18 new hospitalizations in the last 7 days, and unfortunately 7 deaths in the last 7 days, with a total of 30 to date. Our hospital capacity currently shows 74% of local hospital beds are occupied, with 4% of those occupied by COVID patients. And currently, in terms of outbreaks, we have 1 new outbreak to report in the last week, with 6 ongoing in congregate care facilities. And with that, I will have Dr. Abdulmalik add anything she would like to add to this report.
Good morning, Commissioners. We have transitioned into the high transmission zone in Thurston County. Using the state risk assessment dashboard, we crossed over last Friday, where we had more than 75 cases per 100,000 in population over 14 days. And this morning, we're at 87.5 cases per 100,000 over the past 14 days. We're also seeing that the percentage of COVID-19 tests that we perform that come out positive is also higher than it was. So 4.2% in the past week. We are continuing to monitor 6 outbreaks. It was unfortunate yesterday that we reported 7 deaths, of which 6 of those deaths were associated with outbreaks that we're monitoring. It's so important for each and every resident of Thurston County to be really mindful about the risks that they're taking. You know, I know that we're in a place in the pandemic where I'm starting to see a bit of pandemic fatigue, but it's just so important that we all wear masks in public, socially distance, stay home when we're sick, get tested early if we experience symptoms, and do all of these things that we've been talking about since the beginning, because people's lives do depend on it. And that's really what this week has shown us. The only other thing on a lighter note that I wanted to share is that I know that Halloween is coming up on Saturday, and it is possible to celebrate Halloween safely. A lot of that just has to do with the fun that we have at home and with our household members. So things that people can do are at-home scavenger hunts, virtual costume contests and pumpkin carving contests, movie marathons with the folks that you live with. Those are going to be your safest options. And if people do want to trick or treat, having treats in treat bags, so people, to minimize the contact that people have with other people's treats, keeping those treat bags far away from your door, so on a table in your yard or in your driveway, and then marking 6-foot distances in case multiple groups of trick-or-treaters come up to get treats at the same time. I want to remind everyone that the plastic masks are not the same as a cloth mask. So we're still recommending a cloth mask that covers your nose and mouth while you're in public, even when you're in costume and trick-or-treating. And then frequent hand washing is going to be the other piece, and staying with, your household cluster when trick-or-treating. So I think that if everyone kind of follows these guidelines, we can have a safe Halloween and not further increase our COVID-19 cases in the county. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Any questions for Shelley or Dr. A? Go ahead, Ty. Oh, put your hand up, Ty. Go ahead.
I just had one. It could be for either one of you. I think it was a mention in Dr. A's last community letter. There was a reference to monthly testing of long-term care staff. And I got questions about, that seemed low to some folks. I know in other contexts, people are being tested more frequently, given all the outbreaks and whatnot. So I just wondered if you could comment on that.
So that actually is a Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. So it's a CMS rule that came down, and they set a minimum bar for testing, and it has to do with % positivity in the county. So that's how they're determining the transmission baseline. So when folks have so in counties where less than 5% of COVID-19 tests that are performed are positive, CMS is the rule is that folks that work in long-term care facilities have to be tested once a month. If it goes up to that next bracket of, I believe, 5 to 10%, then it's once a week. And then when it goes higher, the folks working long-term care facilities get tested twice a week.
I wrote several numbers down from what you guys were saying, but I don't think I wrote down the current positivity rate. That I know we've been inching up from like 1.8 to 3.7 or something. Are we over 5 now, or?
No. So as of our report date, we're at 4.2% positivity, and we've been hovering in the high 3s, low 4s recently.
And then just to follow up on that directive that came from what would you say it was?
CMS, so Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services at the federal level.
Okay, and that's imperative. So that minimum you said of once a month, that's imperative then on the facility to make sure that's done, or on a public health county level. I mean, who's on the hook for making sure that gets complied with?
So because it's CMS and they have enforcement responsibilities, it's between each facility and CMS whether that gets done. Where we get looped in is depending on the test that's used. So a lot of it. So I'm going to go into the weeds slightly, but the testing that's often used for this, because of the importance of having quick turnarounds for testing, is the point of care antigen test. So so if somebody is antigen test positive as part of these routine screenings and they don't have symptoms, the next step is to get a confirmatory PCR right away. If that confirmatory PCR test is positive, then that worker in the facility is a true positive, and we initiate outbreak precautions for facilities per CDC and CMS guidance. If that PCR test is negative, that's where public health gets involved to determine what the likelihood is, using all of the information at our disposal about what's going on in our community and the particular case's individual circumstances to determine which test is more likely to represent somebody's infectious state. I know the state of Washington has also put forth guidance in that regard as well, to when there's a discrepancy between the antigen test that many facilities are using to fulfill the CMS requirement and the PCR test, which is the gold standard test. So there's a big role for us. There is a role for us in recording, in making sure that these tests that are often done at the facility level get recorded and reported. And there's a role for us in making sure that where folks need testing supplies and where we have testing supplies available to kind of help support our facilities as they meet this required metric.
Thank you.
Is that it? Go ahead, Gary.
I believe I'm okay. Commissioner Menser asked my questions. Thank you.
This is for either one of you professionals. It's being reported in the news, of course, of the severe outbreak back east or southwest, or southeast rather, with hospitals getting completely maxed out and people having to be shipped out. We're not anywhere near that, it doesn't sound like. But my question is, our quarantine and isolation facility, what is the max and that we can, our occupancy, and where are we with that now? How full are we?
I do not have the count for how many people we have in isolation and quarantine facility today, but we can accommodate, I believe, up to 100 people in our quarantine and isolation facility.
But the vast majority of folks that need to be quarantined or isolated are doing that voluntarily, and they can do that in their own place?
Yes, that is correct.
Perfect. That's all I had. Thank you, Dr. A. Thank you, Director Slaughter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to the homeless strategies update. And I believe we're going to have Keely Marino pop up here on the screen any moment. Who's that? Oh, it is Keely.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services. I'm actually going to focus my update today because I know a lot of people are wondering what's going on. I'm here on Ensign Road. I'm here with the City of Olympia staff. I'm just here for support in the ways that I can. And I'm standing next to Teal Russell from the City of Olympia, the homeless coordinator, with them. And we're just here to answer any questions. I've been out here since 7. I don't know when Teal got here, but probably at least an hour before me. Things are going pretty smoothly, but I just wanted to make sure that you got a chance to talk or ask questions of Teal if you would like.
Well, right now, number one, I'd say thank you. I love doing this live remote stuff. This is pretty cool. But do you have any questions, Gary?
No, sir.
Keely or Teal?
I do not.
Ty?
I guess I read something online yesterday that suggested there was something from the Attorney General's office that was changing the dynamic of what was going to happen at Ensign Road. Is that accurate?
Yeah, maybe I can answer that, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Yes, on your agenda today, you have on item number 2, City of Olympia request, and that's associated with the Ensign Road and the proposed vacation. Attached to your document also is a copy of the AG letter. So I know there's a lot of questions related to that in terms of the steps the City of Olympia was going to take. And I set aside a significant amount of time this morning to go through that process in more detail. But certainly, if you'd like to bring that item to the front, it's up to the board. But I do have a lot of information to provide to the board related to this steps the City of Olympia is taking.
Well, I'm fine with that as long as there's anything Keely or Teal want to tell us about it. But that's,
yeah, and my concern is we can do that, but I don't want to tie up staff for 2 different jurisdictions while we chew this other item up, the letter, unless could you give us an update, Keely or Teal, on that?
Well, I could just give you a brief update, and I'll let Teal just about how the morning has gone, and we'll get into the conversation as Ramiro Chavez just mentioned later on in the agenda. I'll be back meeting with you with Tom, but Teal can just tell you how the morning went. How about that?
Perfect. And add to that, Teal, the mood ring of the folks that are directly impacted. Okay.
Okay. Good
Go
morning.
ahead.
Thank you for having me on, because I like to be able to speak face to face, so as it speaks. So this morning, I was out here about 6:45. Our streets folks got here and closed off the roads from Providence Lane to Martin Way, just to make sure that the work zone people would, be city staff only, and obviously Keely was able to be here. We didn't allow any advocates in or anybody. They had 2 weeks prior, I've been talking to them pretty extensively about coming out here and kind of working with folks. But this morning, we just wanted to focus on getting the correct information to the folks that were along here, because I know yesterday and the day before, there was a lot of kind of misinformation, a lot of assumptions that were made. And so I just wanted to make sure that I've had a relationship that I've had with folks along here over the 6 months. And I like to be the one to kind of talk to them about it. So what I've been telling people is, the city is still asking that you leave. You don't have to leave. We're not towing you. We have no intention to tow you, but this is still not a great place to park. And I have options as far as if folks needed gas, if they needed a battery. Yesterday, I purchased 6 batteries for 6 different people. We have a fuel truck out here this morning that we've put fuel in for a few folks that have asked for it and are wanting to leave. And then I have gas gift cards to give folks so that, because there's only so much that the fuel truck carries to put in. And then for folks that have, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to leave if they have other issues going on. I have hotel stays available. No one has taken me up on that yet. No one's taken me up on any of the mitigation site options. So there are options available for people, but not everybody's been up for it. But so far, I've had just a few people that are not mildly upset about it. And we do have Just Housing and a few advocates that are on the outskirts, outside of the closed areas. We're going to be opening the road up in about 30 minutes. But I've had pretty pleasant conversations with folks. I was out here till about 8 o'clock last night talking to people. So just making sure that they're very well informed.
So Till, you said they're not mildly upset. They're not upset at all, or they're over mildly upset?
There's 1 or 2 people that I mean, it's not, I'm not expecting people to be upset about it. So there's only 1 or 2 people that are pretty upset. So I guess mildly to pretty upset.
Okay. And out of about 30 or 35 folks?
Right now there are, sorry, I got to do math for a second here. There's probably about 20 cars that are left, or 20 vehicles that are left. So vehicle and trailer. So 20 total. And yeah.
I just have a couple questions. I'll turn it over to my seatmates.
Yes, sir.
The city has purchased batteries, fuel, and fuel cards. And you say hotel vouchers?
So I have the option of, if somebody wants to get in a hotel, I don't have a voucher. I would just go in and pay for it.
Okay, so a place to stay.
Correct.
That, I think, for the city of Olympia is very, very stand up. Very stand up. So thank you, City of Olympia, for doing that. And thank you, Teal, for doing that. But my last question is then, are they indicating where they might be going then when they leave?
I've sort of asked folks where they're planning on going. I mean, it's tough to kind of get a solid answer. I know some folks I had some people say they might head up to Capitol Forest area. I had one person say they're headed to Tacoma this morning. A few people said they were going to go down to Oregon. They've got options down there. So I'm seeing folks here and there on East Bay Drive. Some folks left last week and went to Pattison. So we're just kind of seeing what's coming from where people land.
Okay, and I lied to you because I have one more question. How many of these folks have school-age children? Predominantly, not very many, 50%.
There was one person up the road. They left yesterday. I'm assuming that they were taller than my hip, so I'm assuming they were school age.
Wow. Okay. Right.
There was a vehicle here that had a 2-year-old, and that person is working with Family Support Center as well.
Beautiful. Good. Thank you. Gary, anything? Any questions of Keely or Appeal?
No, I'm going to wait until we get our briefing here on this Attorney General issue.
Okay. Ty?
Yeah, same. I'm good. Thank you.
Same. Our roving reporters. Thank you, Keel. Thank you for Keely, and thank you, Teal, very much for doing this. Thank you. And we'll see you later on.
Yes.
Thank you, Keely.
All right.
All right. So now we're going to move into reviewing today's agenda for October 27, 2020. And we'll call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock. And we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair Commissioner Mintzer, approval of the agenda and the meeting minutes from last week. And then we get right into presentations. And this is a proclamation on Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Yeah, Commissioners, for your consideration, also you will see this afternoon, and Amy will touch base here in proclamations in the board. We will be adding a new proclamation for you to consider. The board discussed the option of adding the Cancer Awareness Month for this afternoon. So you will see a new item, and we'll circulate the proclamation for your consideration after this meeting. So that's probably what you have in front of you. And also this proclamation that you have on your agenda is for you to consider proclaim October as the Cybersecurity Awareness Month in Thurston County. As you may know, and has been, I believe, all over the news, cybersecurity during voting season is essential. Just last night, I was watching some news reports of an attempt. Some were called foreign governments trying to get into the Washington state voting system. So this is just timely, and as well as also just for you to consider this proclamation this afternoon.
Okay. Ty, any questions or comments?
Is the cancer one for November, or if it's for October, or what's exactly the proclamation?
It is October, so we're a little bit behind on this.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Gary?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you. And for the public consumption, as we're going through the agenda for this afternoon, we have a public hearing this afternoon at about 3 o'clock, or when this meeting's over, and it's on the Parks Open Space Trails Plan, or POST plan. So that'll be coming up. We'll discuss that in a little bit. Next on the agenda is number 1, and that's the opportunity for the public to address the board.
I don't have any specific feedback on that, Commissioners, whether somebody might want to come and give you some testimony this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. County Manager's update? Any follow-up?
Based on the public testimony you received last week, there is no items that I needed to follow up.
Thank you, sir. Agenda item number 3 is the consent items.
But I do have this afternoon, I would like to highlight the opportunity, take the opportunity to highlight CPED staff and the effort they have put the county on this, what I consider to be a significant milestone related to the Habitat Conservation Plan. As you know, in the last 2 weeks, we received the U.S. Fish and Wildlife has taken the 4th version of our Habitat Conservation Plan and has taken it to the formal public meeting process, and also through the environmental process that is required to do. That is significant in terms of as soon as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife gets to that point, is the sponsor That agency is the federal sponsor for the environmental review. And also they have 365 days in which they need to render a decision. So that is extremely, extremely important for the county. And this afternoon, I'd like to have an acknowledgement for CPED staff as to how hard and diligently they have worked over the last few years to get us to this point.
Yeah, they've had a lot of sleepless nights, I'm sure, and extended days. So that's perfect. When are you going to do that this afternoon for your wrap up?
No, they're in item number 2.
Item number 2. Oh, okay. Got it. Perfect. Thank you. Question or comments on that, gentlemen?
No, sir.
Nope. Okay. So agenda item number 3 is the consent items A, B, and C. And the first one is the Treasurer Jeff Gavin, authorizing the sale of tax title property.
Yeah, Commissioners, you reviewed this item last week. You know, as a matter of background, the RCW 36.35.120, 3635.130, 3635.115, and Thurston County Code 2.105 determines the authority as to how property taxes that are delinquent on property that are delinquent and property taxes become tax title properties after we made an attempt to go through a foreclosure action. In this particular case, there's a property located and within the boundaries of the city of Rainier. The city of Rainier sent a request for you to consider selling or donating this property to the city of Rainier for their purposes. Their intent is to have for public use. So the process goes through the county, since the county is the entity who holds in custody all the tax title properties. We don't own as a fee owner. So we couldn't just sell it or donate it. We have to make sure that we recover at least some of the property taxes that we haven't lost as a result of delinquency when this property became a tax title. So the city of Rainier has submitted an application to have a direct negotiation with the treasurer. And the total cost, including all fees, is $1,585.50. I believe Jeff Gadman, the county treasurer, provided some additional information last week where he outlined the specific purpose of this property. It will go for public use. That is the intent of this property as well. The size of this property is only 0.23 acres. Any questions?
I don't see Jeff, the treasurer, in the meeting.
If you have any particular questions for him, I can make sure that he's available later on.
Okay. Ty, do you have any questions about this topic?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Gary?
No, sir.
Nope. Okay. That's 3.
Do you have any questions for Jeff Gadman?
I do not.
Oh,
Doesn't sound like you do. 3B is public health. It's a resolution establishing positions.
You also review this item, Commissioners. This is for your consideration to establish a new full-time position that will be the Community Health Nurse 2. This position will serve as the infection control nurse and will support public health and social services COVID-19 response for an extended period of time. This position has an end date of December 31st, 2022. And the funding is coming from what we call the consolidated contract agreement, where the state has allocated to public health to continue to respond to this emergency. This is a well-needed position, and again, has an end date of December 31st, 2022. If you have any additional questions, Shelley is here to answer those questions.
Any questions, Gary?
No, sir.
Ty?
No.
Nope, nor do I. Thank you. Thank you, Shelley. And then 3C is the voucher list, and I trust we've all gone through those and if we had questions, they've been answered. Moving into agenda item number 4 and department items. The first one is 4A, and that is bidding award for project regarding the Tilly Power Systems improvements.
Yeah, this is a new item for your consideration today, Commissioners. And this project is related to the removal of the manual transfer switch and portable generator in public works on the Tilly campus. Over the last few years, when the power goes out, a manual switch needs to be put in place, and the current generators is exposed to the weather. This particular work project is planning to have an automatic transfer switch and a permanent location for the generator, which will be weatherproof in a way. On October 9, 2020, the county received 10 bids, and the low bidder is the Reliable Electric from Olympia that will provide the services. With a total cost of $75,930, that was the low bid. If we add the sales tax and the 10% contingency, that will be a total of $89,597.40. I believe Robin, Jason Ash is here to answer any questions related to this item.
And this is the first time we put eyes on this topic?
Yes, sir.
So it doesn't sound like it's an emergency because the bidding went out October 9.
Well, it is not an emergency, but there is a sense of having to complete this work right away. As you know, the winter months are coming. Yeah. And we need to make sure that we provide public works with enough capacity to continue to operate if they lose power. So there is not a sense of emergency, but it's certainly there is. We're trying to expedite this contract as soon as possible.
So urgent. Okay. Ty, any questions or comments on this?
No.
Gary?
Yes. What fund will this money be coming from?
I believe this is coming from the road fund, but correct me if I'm wrong, Robin or Jason, but it's coming from the road fund.
It is coming out of building reserves.
Building reserves. Okay, thank you.
And a follow-up would be, how long has this generator been there functioning the way it has been? I mean, 10 years, 2 years?
So I can only speak for my time here at the county. I know we have rented one for 6 months out of the year, basically from October 1st till March 1st for the brine plant. So I know we have done this for the last 4 years. Previously to that, I do not know how long they've done it. I will add, just for your knowledge, that it costs us about $16,500 a year to rent the generator for those 6 months. So we would be doing away with that rental cost each year.
And we're going to get a generator of our own so we don't have to rent. Is that what's going on, basically?
Yes.
And is it, we're going to build a building to put it in, or are we going to put it in the new sand shed, or what are we going to do?
It would sit beside the brine plant out back by the transfer switch. They're designed to be out in the weather.
Okay.
That's funny.
Thank you.
Robin, do you have anything to add? Okay, go ahead, Ty.
Well, then that leads me to the question, how long did these pieces of equipment last?
They should easily run 25 years before there's any look at replacing it.
All right, good. It's not like a computer.
No, we have the courthouse generator, which still is productive and works as it should, and it's what, 35, 40 years old. It is due for an upgrade, but it's still chugging along.
So the cost recovery for this investment will be between 6 to 7 years?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hit it? Okay. Well, even though that is not an emergency, it's urgent. And the next item, number 5, is emergency purchase of security equipment for the new Chandler courtroom.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. And this is related to the the upside courtroom that we're trying to implement in order for superior and district courts to have jury trials. And the security on the accessing the courtrooms is essential to this business. In this particular request is for you to consider two things: is waive the competitive bidding process under RCW 39.042801C, which gives you the latitude under the emergency resolution declaration that you have, and also authorizing central services staff to purchase a X-ray machine for $24,000 that will serve the purpose of providing security clearance for individuals accessing the satellite courtroom. Robin is here to answer any questions that you may have related to this item. And by the way, this is covered by the it will be covered by the CRF funding.
CRF.
She already set aside for that.
Okay, Ty? No, Gary?
I guess I would be curious to know if, I'm not against the waiving of the competitive bidding, but it seems like there ought to be another entity out there that already has some kind of a contract in place that we could piggyback on to get a better deal.
So we looked, this is the best deal we could find. It's a refurbished machine. It is expected to last for the 2 years that we have the lease on the space, but we did look around to see what we could find.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. 5, that was 5A. 5B is setting a public hearing.
Yeah, Commissioners, you have been hearing this item during your budget conversations, and under RCW 8555-120 is requires the all taxing districts that collect regular levies must hold a public hearing on revenue sources for the upcoming budget, in this case for 2021, including consideration of possible increases in property tax revenue that needs to be done on or before November 30th. And also the property tax levy is not certified, has to be certified. It's not certified to the assessor by November 30 prior to the year that is coming up to collect the taxes. You also have an item later on your agenda. There's a continuing item related to the property tax levy. But again, this request is for you to set a public hearing for November 17, 2020 at 5 in the afternoon related to the property tax levy. And Robert can fill in with additional questions and feedback.
Well, Ramiro, you said November 17th, but this motion says November 24.
Let me look at your agenda. It said November 17th. I have it on my agenda.
On mine too.
Yeah,
But is it
item 6 is the 24th.
Item 6. Oh my gosh, I jumped down looking ahead.
Yeah.
My apologies. I always try to keep us a couple steps ahead. And I thought, wait a minute.
It scared me for a second.
All right, thank you for correcting me.
And the purpose of the November 17th public hearing that will give you a little bit of time before you must take an action on this issue.
Okay. That'll teach me for being an overachiever. All right, any questions, Ty or Gary?
No, sir.
Okay. 5C, an ILA with intercity transit.
I briefly mentioned this item will be coming to your attention last week, and this is an interlocal agreement with intercity transit in the cities of Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater, and Yelm, as well as the Port of Olympia, to provide operations and maintenance to the Centennial Station that is located to serve the Amtrak stops. This particular proposal is a renewal of the contract that we already have in place. It's a long-standing effort. It has been a little bit of a cost increases as anything else. The cost of maintaining and operating a facility continued to increase over the years. So this particular proposal This agreement includes 27% participation from the county to provide and support the operations and maintenance. This is a total of $115,255 overall cost.
How much?
The overall cost is $115,255. And the portion of Thurston County is $31,119. And this laid out intercity transit pays also $28,814. City of Olympia pays $20,746. City of Lacey, $18,441. City of Olympia, again, City of Tumwater, $6,915. And the City of Yelm, $2,305. The source of this funding has been paid by the road fund, and that is the intent to continue to have this source of funding to continue to support the operations and maintenance of the Centennial Station. This particular proposal will take the agreement through December 31st, 2028, and this current agreement ends on December 31st, 2020.
Gary?
I guess I'm just wondering, the 27%, that's our portion?
That is our portion, yes.
Okay, that's the 31K then.
That's $31,119.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Ty?
No, okay.
All right. And the Centennial Station is the Amtrak, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah, okay. Got it. Thank you. And agenda item number 6 is setting a public hearing. I've already read this one.
Yes,
We
I
got
think
three
that's
more
what you
after
were. And this is following up to the couple of briefings that you received related to the that you received on October 1st as well as October 15, 2020, related to the comprehensive plan updates. There is a lot of items in this comprehensive plan, as you may recall. And as a result of that, those two briefings, you directed for staff to submit an item to set the public hearing. And that's the first step that you need to take before you may consider adopting the proposed changes, which the Planning Commission held their own public hearing on November, let me see, on August 19, 2020, but that was the end of the many work sessions they also entertained, and in the Planning Commission provided recommendations, which my people provided to you in a very great explanation during these public hearings, these briefings. And again, this is for you to set a public hearing, for you to take public testimony, before you take a final action on the comp plan amendments. Maya is here to answer any additional questions.
Ty, any questions or comments?
No.
Gary?
No, sir.
Nor do I. Thank you for joining us, Maya. Are you here for another one?
I am not.
Okay. Well, enjoy your day. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 7A. We have a few sevens. This first one is amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement.
Yeah, you reviewed this item last week, and this is the purpose of this item is to amend the contract that we have with the Washington Initiative for Supported Employment, where we have a professional services, and the current contract is going to be lapsing, and this item will extend the current contract from December 31st, 2020 to December 31st, 2021, and increases the amount of the services that we get from the state to $120,000. The purpose of this contract is to provide training, technical assistance, individual technical assistance, and professional development for individuals with developmental disabilities in the county. And again, this is a grant that we receive from the Washington State Developmental Disabilities Administration, and this will allow us to continue to provide those services as I listed for the citizens in need. You have Elise Cole available from Public Health and Social Services if you have additional questions related to this item.
Hi, any questions for Annalise? Gary?
No, sir.
Nope. Annalise, thank you very much for joining in.
Thank you. Have a great morning.
Thank you. 7B, community-based testing tents.
This is a new item. You have not seen this item. Then again, this is the items that we need to bring to your attention related to the continued response of the COVID-19 emergency pandemic. This particular item is for you to waive the competitive bidding process and also to go ahead and authorize the Department of Public Health to purchase the following elements. Medical tents for $20,973. Medical screening tents for $11,988. Drive-through testing tent for $9,663. And also with those items are specifically related to support the mobile testing units that we have already implemented here in the county. The total cost of this proposal is $46,034.92. I have to give kudos to staff because they're negotiating a discount of almost $4,486.16.
Woohoo, good
So
job.
there's always staff is looking, although this is covered by the CARES money, the CRF, but I have to give kudos to staff. They're diligent in making sure that we get the best deal possible to continue to provide the services. Mark Moffett is here to answer any questions related to this proposal.
This is all paid for with CRF money?
Yes, sir, CRF money.
Mark, you have anything to add?
No, I will give a shout out to Aaron Berklet, who negotiated that discount. So
Oh, good job.
it wasn't me.
Wow, wonderful. Gary, anything?
Nope. Thank you to Aaron. I'm good. Thank you.
Yep, Ty?
What exactly is a medical tent? Is it something about it that's different than a non-medical tent?
Yeah, you're right, Ty. There is. It's, I'll get my tents from Harbor Freight, but they won't be. I won't be able to be insulated within them, and provide the heat necessary. So they also have walls all the way around, so they'll keep not only our employees safe and dry during the coming winter, but also the residents that are coming in to be tested.
So mainly just heavy duty in terms of staying warm is the medical part of why they're more expensive.
Well, it's also the construction of the frame. If you're familiar with the Harbor Freight type, they're very flimsy. These are heavier construction. Again, you're going to have cars driving through these, so they're really a large structure. Or at least one of them is a large structure. There's a few that are smaller. That are going to be set outside for various purposes.
Okay, thanks.
Do they have a resale value when we're done with them?
I'll check on Craigslist. I'm not sure what the going rate is at the moment.
Offer up? Okay. Thank you, Mark, very much. Moving on to 7C, CARES Funding Amendments to support vulnerable populations.
This is also a new item for you. Commissioners didn't have the opportunity to review this last week. And as a matter of background, on August 4th, the Board of County Commissioners approved a budget amendment number 4 that allocated $1,037,918 from the CARES CRF funding to support vulnerable populations here in the county. At that point, you made an initial allocations to Catholic Community Services, Community Youth Services, the City of Olympia Family Support Center, Interfaith Works, Partners in Prevention and Education, as well as Safe Place. We have determined that, in fact, we have additional capacity to allocate additional CRF funding. And also those outfits have also, their need continues to increase. So this particular proposal is for you to consider and authorize the Director of Public Health and Social Services to increase the contract we already have with those institutions for a certain amount of money. For Catholic Community Services to increase to $18,500. The initial allocation was $103,500. Community Youth Plan, Youth Services, I'm sorry, to increase by $29,000 for a total of $91,000. City of Olympia for hygiene services to increase by $24,000 for a total of $75,500. Family Support Center of South Sound to increase by $86,010 for a total of $206,330. Interfaith work that will be for the First Christian Emergency Shelter to increase by $95,000 for a total of $227,204. Also, the interfaith works for the Martin Way Shelter increased by $89,000 by the total of $209,000. And for partners in prevention and education for shelter in place, increasing by $10,000 for total allocation $90,000. And last but not least, of Safe Place for the shelter hotel vouchers to increase by $15,000 for a total of $70,500. And again, the additional increases is a total of $366,510 is coming from the CRF funding that you have already allocated to public health on the initial allocation. And Tom Webster is here. If you have any questions related to this item.
Good morning, Tom. Ty, you have any questions? Okay, Gary?
No, sir.
I have one question, and that is this money is going to the contract agencies. Are they the ones that are defining vulnerable populations?
So we define it broadly. So these are homeless service providers. So we define this as working with our homeless services providers. Agencies we've had a relationship in the past who are working with these. So this allows them to expand their capacity. For a lot of the shelters, they were overnight shelters, and they were able to go to 24-hour operations to implement social distancing practices, provide the hygiene services through the City of Olympia, community kitchen services. So we really defined vulnerable populations by working with our homeless service providers that we had a relationship with.
Okay, because I know you can narrow that even down through the funnel to get specific vulnerable folks out there, segments for a population, but by and large, I think they would fall into this category. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
7D, 7D, contract with Interfaith Works for emergency shelter beds.
Yeah, Commissioners, this is a follow-up to the item that you discussed last week related to the Interfaith Works shelter project. They have plans for on 2828 Martin Way in Olympia. They will create 38 emergency shelter beds. You had the conversation that perhaps there is a need for them to have additional funding from the county. And this is the proposal for you following up to that conversation. This proposal is to approve a contract with Interfaith Works for $600,000. You may recall last week, staff provided a perspective that how we're going to be coming up with the $600,000 to support this project. $100,000 will come from, we know the House Bill 2163. That's money left over for this year, and also $500,000 for the Coronavirus Relief Fund that will make up the $600,000. You also heard by this investment to the interfaith projects, this project will become a reality. Absent this, they will not be able to pursue this project. So I personally was very excited when I heard about this project, and I believe Commissioner Hutchins also heard this on the Regional Housing Council. And as I stated last week, I encourage the board to support this, and this is the actual item to make sure the Interfaith Works gets the additional money to implement this project. time. He's here to answer any questions.
Do you have anything to add, supplement?
Not at this time. They're looking to close later this week. So if this is approved, we will be moving very quickly to move this project forward.
Very good. Gary, any questions or comments?
Yes, Tom, is this property site specific already identified that you've?
It has been identified. They are not making it public as they want to do some outreach with neighbors and until that property acquisition is complete. But there is a specific property that has been identified. Yes.
Okay. I don't want to give anything away, but is it in the unincorporated portion of the county?
No, it is not.
It's
Okay.
in the city of Olympia.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Ty? My only comment is this is very, very cool. Very happy with this. Thank you, Tom. And
Thank you.
I bet Interfaith Works is over the moon.
Yeah, we're all very excited about this.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 8, Public Works, County Road Administration Board, the arterial program grant app.
Yeah, you heard this item last week, commissioners, and this item is for you to approve submitting a grant to the County Road Administration Board for a $2.2 million. The grant is to do some road improvements on 183rd Avenue South West, where they will widen the existing lanes to 11-foot lanes, and also they will create 2 5-foot shoulders. This particular grant does require a match, and the match is $545,000, and that will come from the county road fund. This is already included on the 2021-2026 Transportation Improvement Program, which we had the opportunity to review here a couple of weeks ago. And if you have any questions, I believe Jesse King is here to entertain your questions.
Hi, any questions of Jesse? Gary?
No, sir.
Nor do I. Thank you for joining us, Jesse. 8B, setting a public hearing. Now, we got a few of these coming up. Public hearing for the proposed solid waste flow control ordinance.
Yeah, this proposal you heard last week, and is for you to consider setting a public hearing for November 17, 2020, 4 in the afternoon, where you will be receiving public testimony related to the proposed flow control ordinance. And the flow control ordinance is related to the solid waste management and handling in Thurston County. While counties in this state do not regulate solid waste collection, they do regulate disposal. And under RCW 36.58.040, counties may designate solid waste disposal sites as the exclusive site for receiving solid waste collection in unincorporated areas of the county. You have received a few briefings on this, the intent of this proposal, as well as you have discussed this in a couple of executive sessions. And again, this is for you to receive public testimony related to the proposed ordinance. Last week, I believe Commissioner Minster asked for the latest version of the proposed ordinance that has been sent your way, I believe. You already have it. If you don't, please let me know. I will make sure that you have those available before the public hearing. Karen Weiss from Public Works is here to answer any questions related to this item.
Good morning, Karen. Do you have any questions, Gary?
No, sir.
And Ty? Okay.
No, sorry. I've got weed control going on outside my window. It's hard to.
Yeah, I know. They're doing the leaf blower and I started sneezing. Thank you, Karen. I have nothing on this. No questions.
Commissioners.
8C, setting a public hearing for proposed parks impact fee schedule.
You also received this item, Commissioners, and this is for you to consider setting a public hearing November 17 at 5 in the afternoon. And this is all related to the public hearings that you need to hold related to potential revenues. And this particular public hearing will be related to proposed park impact fees increases in the unincorporated areas of the county. You reviewed these items a couple of occasions. Last week, I believe Commissioner Edwards requested the meeting notes. I don't know if the staff has submitted those yet from Public Works, but if not, we can certainly follow up and make sure you have those notes before you hold a public hearing, just to make sure you have a wider understanding of the proposal. And Carrie Hibden is here to answer any questions.
Anything to add, Carrie?
Not at this time, Commissioners.
And is this your last meeting?
This afternoon will be my last meeting, correct?
Hey, Carrie,
Wow.
did you have the chance to gather the notes of the briefing?
We will have them for this afternoon session. Is that your question, Commissioner, or Ramiro? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we don't need, we need to make sure those notes are available to the board.
Sure.
Soon. Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Sad day, Gary, sad day.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Gary, any questions?
No, I just want him to reconsider.
Okay. Ty, anything for Carrie or on this issue? Nope. All right. Thank you, Carrie. See you this afternoon. Be your final swan song.
Thank you.
8D, setting a public hearing regarding the rate increases for Long Lake Management District and Lake Lawrence Management District.
Yeah, as part of your overall revenue set of public hearings, this is another request for you to set a public hearing for November 17, 2020 at 5 in the afternoon. Well, you will be receiving public testimony related to proposed rate increases for the Long Lake and Lake Lawrence. The Long Lake Steering Committee is recommending and staff is supporting about 3% annual rate increase for both 2021 and 2022. And also the Lake Lawrence Steering Committee is also recommending, the staff is supporting as well, a 1% annual rate increase for 2021 and 2022. And that will be the purpose of the public hearing for you to receive public testimony with this proposed rate increases for the two lake management district the county helps manage. And Tim Wilson is here to answer any questions.
Morning, Tim. Do you have anything to add?
Morning, Commissioners. No, I don't have anything to add other than it's always difficult to follow up on Carrie Hibden.
Hi, have you anything for Tim? No, Gary?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Tim. Agenda item number 9 is our chance as the commissioners to report back on what we've been doing for the last week or so. And then the county manager does a wrap up and reviewing our schedule. And then we move into a public hearing. And this one is on Public Works. It's on the POST, or the Parks, Open Space and Trails Plan.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. Yeah, you will be receiving public testimony related to the proposed POST plan, which is the Parks, Open Space and Trails. And the staff provided you with a couple of briefings related to this proposal. You have indicating your desire to hear from the public about this proposal before you consider taking a final action.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioners?
No, sir.
Nope. Okay. Thank you. It's just a couple of minutes after 10. We're going to go ahead and get through the November 3rd agenda. It's pretty thin. We'll get through that and then we'll take a well-deserved break for staff. This is for Tuesday, November 3rd, and we'll call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock with the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards, approval of the agenda and the board meeting minutes from today, and then an opportunity for the public to address the board, which may be just premature at this point, and any county manager update that you may have, Ramiro.
Yeah,
we move into consent item. Well, it says A through C, but starts with C, and that's the only one, so that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
And it's just the financial vouchers, so we can get that taken care of. And department item number 4, agenda item number 4 is a department item. Commissioner setting a public hearing for telecommunications franchise.
Yes, Commissioner, we received an application for a franchise for a utility to operate within the county's right of way. In this particular case, is the Ashtown Broadband LLC. And again, it's a telecommunication services. They will be utilizing the county's right of way. And before the board can take any action on this, you need to hold a public hearing before you can accept the application for a franchise agreement. This particular proposal is for you to consider setting a public hearing for December 1st, 2020 at 3 in the afternoon or soon thereafter to get public testimony related to this particular franchise application. Patty Rosero is managing this item and is here to answer any questions related to this proposal.
All right, Gary or Ty, any questions for Patty?
No, sir.
Go ahead, Ty.
So I don't necessarily need this answered today because I know we've got a million things, but I'd be curious just what, maybe at the time of the public hearing, we can get an overview of what I don't really understand this field very well. So what the considerations are, why would the board grant or not grant a particular application? Is it, you know, are there a limit to how many? Is it companies, you know, solidity, or, I mean, what are the considerations? I have no idea how to evaluate something like this and what the considerations are for the board. So I'd love to hear about that a little more at some later point.
Okay, sounds good. I'll get that information for you.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you, Patty.
Hmm?
Agenda item number 5 for next week is public defense interlocal agreement for the city of Tumwater for indigent defense.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. As you may be aware, the Office of Public Defense provides services to represent indigent defenders within the cities of Tumwater. So this proposed, the current agreement ends on the end of this year in 2020. And this proposal is to renew this agreement from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. For the total amount of $550,300. There has been a little bit of changes on the current agreement where they have the city of Tumwater usually have two public defenders available to their cases. They like to reduce that to, I believe, one. And also, they're going to be paying cost rate of any additional cases that may require beyond the one FTE public defender. And those will be managed by the outside attorneys, panel attorneys that we have under contract. This contract also includes costs related to professional services, and also includes costs related to conflict resolution. In some cases, they may require that conflict resolution. And there is a proposal. They will be coming on your budget deliberations, because obviously this item will reduce an attorney that will be providing service to the city of Tumwater. Have conversations with Patrick O'Connor, I believe Robin also has, as to how we're going to be mitigating that aspect, and we'll be bringing that proposal to you during the budget deliberations. This, I believe, is coming up next week. And it is a balancing act as to how we need to do this, and I believe the proposal Pat has proposed is well-founded and without having to sacrifice any FTEs related to public defense.
Interesting. Well, let's see if my questions are answered. Ty, any questions or comments on this?
No, I talked to Patrick O'Connor about it. I think, I can't remember the details, but he has a plan. He has some flexibility that will allow him to bring more juvenile cases to this. Basically, he can shift cases so that we don't lose the employee.
Right.
But exactly how what flow stream of cases will change a little bit. But there's things that he's doing, contracting out certain cases, not having as many juvenile cases in-house that give him some flexibility. So it made sense to me at the time that he explained it.
Okay. Gary?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
So that pretty much answered. I knew you'd ask that question. Okay, I got it. All right, thank you. Agenda item number 6A is contract with the City of Olympia for micro shelters.
Yeah, Commissioners, on the last Regional Housing Council, the City of Olympia provided a request to the Regional Housing Council to accessing the emergency funds set aside from the House Bill 2163 dollars, which is $125,000 that was set aside in emergency. That is we used to know this as the HHAC money, and the gist of this proposal is the HHC money now is managed by the Regional Housing Council. They need to receive specific items access into this emergency funding. In this particular proposal for $60,000 is to replace the tents. At the mitigation side, they have downtown Olympia with a what they call a micro houses. If you have not seen this, is a very interesting process, which is about 7 by 7. That is a wooden structure that is much better than the tents, and also is not quite a micro house in terms of tiny homes. So somewhere in between. The Regional Housing Council unanimously recommended for the Board of County Commissioners to access this emergency funding and fund the $60,000 the City of Olympia has requested. And again, this is coming from the $2163 and from the set aside of $125,000 for emergency funding, which I believe meets the intent of that request. And Tom Webster is here to answer any questions.
Tom, do you have anything to supplement?
No, just to add that also within the RHC, there's a funding group that also met to discuss this and reviewed it in accordance with HHSC policies to make sure it met the definition of an emergency and the various criteria that the HHSC had set up for these funds, and determined that it did. So just to reiterate that this was reviewed by the RHC funding work group, and they're also recommending that this be funded.
So yeah, just to reiterate what Ramiro said, if you understand or you know what a tiny house is, and I know you know what a tent is, this is in between. It's a micro shelter, which is warmer and more sanitary, cleaner than living out in a tent. Any questions? I'll start with Gary. Any questions of Tom?
Yes. How many units does that $60,000 get us?
They expect around 80 units to be built. They've received a donation of $50,000 from Providence to help purchase the lumber, and they've received some donations and discounts from lumber companies. So this $60,000 is primarily going to be used for the staffing costs and volunteer oversight to build the units.
Okay.
But they're expecting to get around 80 units constructed.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was as you said, a concerted effort between, I think it was Hardell Lumber and St. Pete's, and there was another group in there as well that kicked in. I don't recall who they were, what that organization was. Ty, any questions for Tom?
Tom, is this the first? So Ramiro had said there's $125,000 set aside for emergency. Is this the first expenditure of that pot of money
Yes, it is. This is the first request we've received for access to that pot of money.
So if we approve it, we still have $65,000 potentially if there's some other new emergency between now and the end of the year.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you, Tom. Anything further, Gary?
No, sir.
Nope. Okay. Thank you, Tom. Moving on to 6B, Emergency Shelter Solutions Grant.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. This item is for you to consider an amendment with the Washington State Department of Commerce related to Emergency Solutions Grant related to the COVID-19 emergency. Under the CARES Act, Thurston County has been allocated funding under the Emergency Solutions Grant COVID, also known as the ESGCV program through the Department of Commerce. In July 2020, the county received an initial allocation of $677,292 from this funding source. The Department of Commerce has received a second round of this sourcing, which is this source of funding. It has issued an additional $3,255,300 to the county. So the total contract right now will be, if you approve this, will be $3,882,592. There's a little bit different timeline on this funding, which needs to be spent by September 30th, 2022. And the objective of this fund is to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus among individuals and families who are homeless or receiving homeless assistance, and to support additional homeless. And again, this is to accept additional monies from the Department of Commerce to continue for us to respond to this emergency, particularly related to the individuals most in need. And Tom is here to answer any questions related to this item.
Okay. Ty, any questions?
No.
Gary?
No, sir.
No, nor do I. Thank you, Tom. Again, thank you.
You.
6AB. 6A, 6B. I turn the page and it's back to A again. Okay. We'll get that fixed. And that is the State of Washington Department of Children, Youth, and Families in a local agreement.
Yes, Commissioners, for your consideration, this item is to amend the contract that we have with the Washington State Department of Child, Youth, and Families to get an additional funding of $937,602. That will be for a revised contract amount of a total of $1,749,653.32. And also the contract will extend the delivery of the services to July 31st, 2021. The purpose of this particular money is to fund community health nurse to deliver nurse-family partnership, NFP programs, to mothers eligible for the services in Thurston, Lewis, and Mason counties. I believe Gretchen Thaler is here to answer any questions related to this particular proposal. As a matter of background again, the NFP program is serving 35 families in Mason County, 52 families in Thurston County, and now they have expanded to serve 38 families in Lewis County.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Gretchen. And again, yesterday, our Partners Action Team 2-hour session on parental stress and remote learning was a success yesterday afternoon. Great job. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions for Gretchen on this topic?
Well, I guess I would say, Gretchen, our kids are still, what, 30% of our population, 100% of our future, right? This is going to help us along.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're able to serve more families, so it makes me happy.
Ty, any questions? Comments? No, nor do I. Thank you, Gretchen, very much.
Thank you.
6D, setting a public hearing, consolidated annual performance and evaluation report.
So for your consideration, Commissioners, for you to set a public hearing on December 1st, 2020 at 3 in the afternoon. And this is related to the performance and evaluation report related to the CDBG, the Community Development Grant, block grants that we have, as well as the Home Investment Partnership, the home dollars. As you hold public hearings, when you like to implement or approve the annual plan, you also need to hold a public hearing related to the performance and evaluation report, which is at the end of the process. In this case, for the 2019 Wilson Housing Urban Development Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. So, and Tom is here to answer any questions related to this proposal.
Gary, any questions?
No, sir.
Ty? No. Thank you again, Tom.
Thank you.
And then that meeting ends. We'll do our typical wrap up, and that's that. So with that, it's about 10:19. Let's take we're going to go into recess for 10 minutes. We'll be back at 10:30. Reconvene at 10:30. Thank you.
Not yet, but he might be coming in soon.
Okay. We're reconvening the meeting. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm back for the agenda setting work session for October 27, 2020. We're moving on with our agenda, and this next topic is proclamations and awards.
Good morning, Commissioners. Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board. There is one proclamation included in your packet to proclaim the month of October as Cybersecurity Awareness Month. There are a few grammatical corrections that will be made before the 2 p.m. meeting. This will be presented by the Thurston County Auditor, Mary Hall, so long as she is available. If she becomes unavailable, I believe Robin Campbell will present. We will also have another proclamation finalized for 2 p.m. to proclaim the month of October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I'm receiving some updated statistics with the much appreciated help of public health staff. This is typically done as a Board of Health item. However, Board of Health is not scheduled to meet today, so this will be presented by you as the Board of County Commissioners.
Very good. Thank you for making sure the cancer got in there. I appreciate it. I know Ty does. All right. Any questions, Commissioners, on proclamations? No. Nope. Okay. Advisory boards and commissions.
In your packet this morning, there's one application received from Jeff Merriman for the Planning Commission. At this time, there are no vacancies on the Planning Commission and no terms are set to expire before the end of this year. This is included to inform you we've received this application and that it has been shared with the Planning Commission staff. So we will circulate a letter letting Mr. Merriman know there are no current vacancies at this time on the Planning Commission.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Ty.
Is there a time limit? Like, is his application stay on file like forever or for a certain period of time? If a vacancy comes up in 3 years, would he automatically be considered, or does he need to be told to reapply every few years, or how does that work?
I believe rule of thumb is that we keep the applications on file to inform the applicants of the next available vacancy. For Planning Commission, I believe that's the end of 2021.
Okay, so he's good to go end of 2021.
Yeah, and at that time, we'll ask the applicant if they'd like to update any information they have included on their application. So, yeah.
Okay.
Gary, anything?
No, sir.
Good, okay. Thank you, Amy. PIO check-in. Megan Porter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. Just a couple high-level things for you. I'm working with Emergency Management to begin updating the PIO plan and the ESF 15, which is Public Affairs Plan. And this is to help ensure that we're coordinating as best as we can within the county and with our external stakeholders during an emergency. These haven't been updated for a while, so it's really important that we get them updated so we're prepared for an emergency. And then Brian is working with Commissioner Hutchings and Commissioner Menser on 2 separate videos with TC Media. Filming for Commissioner Hutchings is slated for November 4th with a release in the first week of December. And then they're still in the planning and scripting production phase for Commissioner Menser's video. And then I'm continuing to support the COVID-19 PIO as well as the COVID policy team as needed. Pending any questions?
Any questions for Megan? Or comments? No. All right. Thank you, Megan, very much.
Thank you.
Legislative update, Ramiro.
Yeah, Commissioners, in your packet, I have included the approved 2021 WASAC legislative agenda. I'm not going to read this to you entirely, but they have taken a different approach this year. They have divided in areas of interest, which includes infrastructure, environment, fiscal, social justice and equity, and emergency response and recovery. And again, this is for your information at this point. If you have the opportunity to review this legislative agenda, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I will make sure I will answer those questions. Also, as an FYI, I'm part of a subcommittee from WASAC that is looking at the federal legislative agenda. We have held the first meeting a week ago. We're going to have a follow-up meeting this Friday. And as soon as the federal legislative agenda is approved, I will bring that to your attention for you to be aware of the items. The WASAC is going to be requesting to the federal delegation. Also, my apologies, but by next week, I will have a final draft of the county's legislative agenda, and then we'll take, we'll have a conversation with Deborah, and in fact, I'm going to have a conversation with Deborah Manguia this Friday to see as to how we can reach out to some of the local legislative delegation leading to the 2021 legislative session.
Okay, any questions on the legislative updates? I'm looking at the social justice and equity and just seeing how inclusive it is. Okay, Gary, anything on this?
No, sir.
Ty?
No, I'll take a look at it later. I haven't
Okay,
seen it yet.
thank you. All right, thank you. So next is briefing or public hearing decisions pending. Romero, anything?
No, nothing is pending for you, commissioners.
Okay, so agenda item number 10 is the host of a litany of things. We'll start with the 2021 property tax levy discussion and direction.
Yeah, commissioners, this is a follow-up to, I believe, a series of conversations. You held yet another conversation this past Tuesday during your commissioners check-in, I believe. So I'm not quite aware as to how you left it, so I would leave it up to Robin to guide us through this item and continue the conversation with the board.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Robin Campbell, Assistant County Manager. And where we left it on Thursday is we had gone over a worksheet. I demonstrated to you how to build the, how the property tax is developed or calculated. I showed you examples of if you do the 1% increase, how much that is. If you do the IPD rate, how much that is, what the differences are, the impact to an average property owner. We looked at all of that. And I gave you the 4 options that I believe you have in your packets this morning, that you can do no increase, an increase in any amount up to 0.602% with no additional actions other than the increase. That the third option is to pass a resolution of substantial need, and under that you can raise it from 0.603 up to 1% of the levy lift. And the fourth option I gave you is really a companion option. If you do anything less than 1%, you have an option to have bank capacity. And we talked about what that is. You had asked me to try to develop a simple statement for citizens that would talk about how the levy increase affects them and why their property taxes might go up. And Megan Porter was very kind and started a statement like that, but we have not completed it, so I do not have that for you this morning. Other than that, what questions do you have remaining that I can answer to help you make a decision?
I have a question. Did we get our sales tax report back?
Oh, the sales tax is in and it's an increase. I don't have it filled into a report for you. I just saw the number.
How about, what's our increase from difference from last year at this point in time?
I'm looking that up. While I look that up, what would you like to know about the property tax?
Well, Megan will come up with something, or you guys will. I'm confident you'll come up with something I'd like to look at. We've got some time, right? We got a few days.
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
No, because remember you set already a public hearing for November 17th for you to receive public testimony related to the property tax levy. And so in whatever decisions that you are going to make, that is the gist of that public hearing. So there's not much time. And that is what have been engaging the board on this issue for the last 2-3 weeks, just to give you ample time for you to answer, for us to answer any questions you may have. So we don't have much time left.
I guess as a follow-up to that, am I hearing that we need to make a decision before the public hearing?
I need your guidance so that I can develop the paperwork that is published on what your intention is so that the public has something to react to. I'm not asking for a final decision, but I need to know what you are putting forward.
I'm thinking about one of these options you laid out, but I want to see the verbiage that goes with it at some point. That's kind of where I'm at.
I've given you examples of what the resolutions look like. I can certainly give you those again.
No, I'm more interested in the sales pitch, if you will, to the public. And it sounds like that's coming yet, so.
We're working on it.
Yeah, I don't know where my seatmates are, but.
Is it a sales pitch or just an explanation of what no increase means?
Well,
Wouldn't increase any amount of up to
an explanation. I'm not saying a sales pitch, sir.
Okay. Ty?
I don't need any more information to decide what to put forward to the public.
Yeah, I don't need a statement that won't, I like to see it, of course. I think it's important to put it out to the public in lay terms, but it's not going to help me make a decision. So did you want to cover some of these things again then, Robin? For people that are watching as to what this means, dollars and cents to the individual?
Sure, I can do that. Before I do that, the property tax, the October payment for the property tax, which was money collected in August, September, October, yeah, it was August. The total payment from Department of Revenue, $1,780,797. That is an increase of about 7% over October, if I quickly did the math correctly. October last year was 1,653,000 and change. So I think it was about a 7% growth. So there's that. Moving on to the property tax. Why am I getting a...
I thought you said that was the property tax.
No, that's the sales tax.
Sales, okay, thank you.
I do think you did say property tax, though, when you started on that.
I apologize.
Okay.
Thank you.
Trying to focus you on property tax. That's what we need a decision on today. So I'm going to share my screen. To move this over. All right. So what we have is the levy, how to calculate the levy. We don't have the increase from the state yet, but we have of all the other pieces. So a 1% increase on the highest lawful levy last year will add 410,000, and I'm rounding here, 410,000 to the levy. That is the one thing that is in your control, is the percent of increase over last year's highest lawful levy. All the other pieces that increase property tax are computations based on information that we get from other sources. So we multiply the new construction that we get from the assessor by last year's levy rate. That will add 858,000 to the levy. Soon, we hope to receive the value of state property, and the amount of that increase is multiplied by last year's levy, and that will compute to an amount that, and right now I have no idea how much that might be. We add the refund that we get from the county treasurer, currently $253,000. In the general fund and the road fund, the other decision the board has is to do a levy shift. This calculation assumes the same amount of levy shift as last year, $3 million, is added to the general fund levy and subtracted from the road fund. So the total new levy for property taxes countywide for the general fund is, you know, given no other changes, would be $45,605,683. You divide that by the total county assessed value, which we get from the assessor, to get the new rate, which is $1.12 rounded per thousand. Now you'll notice that that's actually a decrease of about 4 cents per thousand. So
a 1% increase is a decrease.
A 1% increase on the highest lawful levy is a decrease. And the reason for that, as we discussed on Thursday, is because the total value of property in Thurston County has gone up to a greater degree than 1%. So when you calculate the levy rate, when values go up at a faster rate than the increase of the levy, then the levy rate goes down. So if you were to calculate the increase in the levy, the total levy increase, last year's levy, $44,169,457. It's different than the highest lawful levy because it includes these other things. Then the increase in the total levy is a little over $1.4 million, and the decrease in the levy rate is about 4 cents per thousand. If you apply that to the average home, the average assessed value of property this year, currently, according to Redfin on the internet, the median home price is $359,000. So if I applied that to this year's levy rate for the general fund, the property tax in 2020 would be $459,000.
$459.
Right. Oh gosh, thousand. I say thousand. I'm so sorry. $459 for the year. $459 for the general fund. This is only for the county general fund. There are so many taxing jurisdictions that a property owner pays tax to. But for the general fund, $459.05. In 2021, let's say that the value of your home went up at the same rate as total property values in the whole county went up. So total value last year was a little over 38 billion.
Sorry, you guys stopped it or covering Robin. I didn't hear what you were saying.
Okay, so we're gonna assume that the value of your property went up at the same rate as the value of all property in Thurston County. Thurston County property values in 2020 were a little over 38 billion. The new value, according to the assessor, is about 40.7 billion. That's a 7% increase. So we're assuming, for the purpose of this calculation, that the new median assessed value will be $422,891. And we multiply that by the new levy rate of $1.12 per thousand. So your property tax that you would pay for the county general fund next year, $473.97, for a total increase to the taxpayer of this average homeowner would be about $15 for the year. If we did a different percentage here, if we did the IPD, for example, 0.602, the increase to the homeowner would be $13 for the year. So the difference to the taxpayer between the IPD and the full 1% is less than $2 a year.
And again, the IPD is the implicit price deflator.
Yes, the implicit price deflator, which is the inflation factor that is used by the state to create the limit. The inflation that most people are more familiar with is the Consumer Price Index, or the CPI, but that is not what was in the law that created this cap. We use the IPD.
And the numbers you just presented to us, they will be impacted by the amount the state, when they give us the state property numbers? Is that due the end of this week, or was it due last week?
No, that is due when the state decides to give it to us.
Okay.
It comes when it comes. We'll have that probably by the end of November when you set the levy. But until then, we assume that there will be no change in the state property value. The other things, these numbers are not final. The assessor is still working on the value of new construction. They're still adjusting the total assessed value. This is going to change slightly right up until January, when the tax roll is certified by the assessor to the treasurer. So what I'm giving you here is the best information that we have today, but it is certainly not, it's close. It's very close to what the change will be for next year, but it's not the final number.
And so looking at the options that we have, no increase increase any amount up to 0.602%. Option 3, pass a resolution of substantial need, which would increase any amount between 0.603% and 1%. And then the fourth option is banked capacity. Would you explain banked capacity to the public? It says we would be, it would bind future boards, wouldn't it?
No, it wouldn't at all bind a future board. Bank capacity would allow us, if you didn't raise the levy the full 1%, let's say, for example, you only increased it by 0.5%, 0.5%, then what you could do is bank the other 0.5%, and next year or in any future year, a board would have that bank capacity to add to that year's levy at their discretion. They wouldn't have to, but they could add it and use that bank capacity to raise the property tax above the 1% limit.
And I wanted the public to hear that as well. Okay, thank you. Gary, anything?
I do have a question on the state's overall valuation of property. If we end up in a situation where commercial urban core property, income properties and such, goes down in value substantially because of urban flight, would that affect the formula?
It would. I'm sorry, restate the hypothetical that you're offering.
What I'm wondering about is commercial properties are going to be in the toilet for the next 10 years, in my estimation, because of the urban flight and remote home working and such. So I believe there's going to be a substantial reduction in value in those properties. And if that was a statewide issue, would that affect this tabulation?
No, it would not, because we calculate our tax based on the value of properties in Thurston County on the assessor's assessment. So that has nothing to do with the state-owned property part of this levy calculation.
Okay, so that's the piece we're waiting for that's not in just yet. The
Yes,
change
and
there.
it's a very minor piece of the calculation.
Yes, okay, good enough, thank you.
Bye. Questions or comments?
No.
Okay. When I look at the cost of county government or any government, municipality or pseudo government, quasi government, costs are going up. And if, as much as I would like to say I'm not in favor of increasing taxes, if anybody watching or listening, or any of us here, if we got up this morning and used lights, if our heat went on, if we flushed the toilet, if we drank water with vitamins, or you used water for coffee, you drove to work, drove to the store, you used your phone at all, or you saw law enforcement, medics, or fire department employees out there. If today's trash day, like it is at my house, everything, the government touches every facet or function of our life, it seems. And those costs are increasing. So as much as I would like to say, not increasing, no increase at all, that's not reality. So what right now you need, Robin, is direction as to which of the options we are favoring, or what would you like to hear?
So what I need to know is what percent, if any, of a levy increase you would like for each of the 4 funds that have a property tax levy. That is the general fund, also known as current expense, the road fund, conservation futures, and medic 1. And remember that you could choose a different rate for each of those. I am recommending to you the full 1% for each of the 4 funds.
Okay, what was the last one? I'm sorry. General fund, road, Conservation Future, and what else?
Medic 1.
Medic 1, thank you. All right, commissioners. Ty?
I follow Robin's recommendation. You can look at this a lot of different ways. You can look at the history that's never not been done in the whole history of the 1% cap. You can look at the GMA and the way county financing is structured that Commissioner Edwards talks about a lot, how there was never a phase 2, and the financing of our government is essentially structured and being relied upon that. If we weren't taking $3 million from our road fund every year for several years running to try to make ends meet, there might be a more of an argument in my mind, but we're doing that, and we have a plan to try to stop doing that. And this will help us do that because we're going to be trying to reduce that by about $250,000 per year, was my understanding from the board's direction. So based on all that, I'm going to follow the recommendation of the budget director and recommend that we take the 1% from each across the board. I mean, the county government, you know, in all the budget presentations that we had from the various departments, I didn't hear that anything else was going up at 1% or less. I mean, this IDP at 0.6, I didn't hear that any of our costs were going up at 0.6 or less, whether it's the 2.5% COLA in our union contracts, whether it's healthcare premiums. Healthcare premiums went up like 4 or 5%. We were really happy, but that's still a lot more than 1%. So it just doesn't, the numbers don't compute. We're sort of locked into taking this increase each year and doing a whole bunch of other stuff to try to create new revenue. I don't think it's responsible to not take the tool that the one meager tool that the legislature has given us.
Gary?
I'm interested in the banked capacity. But I don't know if I'm interested in the increase. And I thought that we were going to be waiting to hear from the public at some point. So I'm a little stumped about, we're setting a public hearing to get public input, but we're giving you direction ahead of time about what we prefer. So we're going to make a decision without the public input. Is that right?
Go ahead, Romero.
Not necessarily, Commissioner. The public needs to provide public testimony on the intent that you plan to take related to a property tax. Because if your intent is not to increase, then the public testimony will be based on no increases. Then if you turn around after the public hearing and you decided to increase the property tax, then that will not serve the purpose of the public hearing. So that is really the context of today's conversation, is what is the intent? You're not approving that, but what is the intent of the board? So the public understand what is the intent the board is planning to take related to property taxes.
So tell me how that fits with the banked capacity proposal, because we won't make that decision until when? If we made that decision, when would that banked capacity decision be made?
It is all made at the same time.
December?
No, now. So you have to actually adopt and certify the levy no later than November 30th. I need a guidance now so that I can publish the documents that we are required to publish by law for the public hearing that's going to be on November 17th, so that you can certify a levy by November 30th. So if you are interested in bank capacity, then you would need to do a levy lift of less than 1% and tell me how much you want to bank.
And we're going to tell you that before we have a public hearing.
Yes, so that I can publish the documents that have your intentions.
how can we give the public the most flexibility so that they can weigh in and actually have impact on, potential impact on our decision?
So I again, you know, Megan did the draft and I'm working with her to update that. I did not have time to finish that this morning. And we are working on putting a calculator online so that they could enter the value of their home and see what the tax increase would be. And they could, this is starting to get extremely complicated. It's already a complicated, not that it's too hard to understand, but it's a complex calculation. And there are just so many things you can put online in a calculator. So it's not like I can say, enter the tax increase that you want here and enter your property there and enter the road shift amount here and have it spit out a number. It doesn't work that way. But we can have a simple, on all four funds, by the way. So I can have a very simple calculator online that says if the board were to raise the property tax by 1% in the general fund, this is the increase in your general fund tax. That's what I can do.
Okay, I guess, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. You want to finish up, Gary?
Yeah, well, how does it work if we compare revenue from sales tax and property tax from where we were last year, go all the way through up until the end of October? I don't know, I guess we've got our October report, which is actually September. If we show a constant excess above our revenue from last year, are you saying then that we could still, even though I'm looking for a substantial need justification, are you saying we don't need any justification, we just need to say we need it? Because if that's all it takes, even though we've got, I don't know, several more millions of dollars in revenue that are going to be above and beyond last year at the same point in time.
Yes, as we've looked at in the forecast, we factored in estimated increases in sales tax and the property tax. And as you have seen, the amount of money available to the board does not begin to meet the additional $6 million in spending that offices and departments have expressed to you is their need. At most, you will be able to increase general fund spending by somewhere between $2 and $3 million. Certainly not the $6 million. And as you saw by their requests, all of the requests are reasonable and in keeping what your offices and departments need to operate. So there is a substantial need in the county to continue to provide services.
Okay, can I get on to Ty? Go ahead, Ty.
Commissioner?
Yep.
I'd just like to provide additional perspective related to the public hearing, following up on Commissioner Edwards' comments. and it's not really any different on any public hearing related to the intent of the board. For instance, you're going to be setting a public hearing on the rates and charges for increases for Long Lake and Lawrence Lake. One is 3%, the other one is 1%. This is just the intent of the board to give what the intention is before you take a formal action. Similar to past public hearings, and I'm going to use another lake, the Black Lake, where you held a public hearing on the intent of the board to take an action related to a proposed increases in fees. So that is, in essence, the same. You're not committing, you're not approving, but you show the intent for the public to have a clear understanding of what the board is planning to do related to property taxes.
Like flow control and all the other public.
Right. So I just want to globalize the conversation at this point related to a public hearing. That is no any different than any other public hearing that you hold related to the intent. Whether you vote on that after the public hearing, that's a different set of conversations before you take a formal action. But here is to provide the guidance for us to provide as much information, transparent information to the public to give you public testimony on the intent.
All right, Ty, go ahead.
I just want to make the point, let me take you back to last fall when I think this is a little different because we're being asked to make expenditure decisions in next week and the week after before we make the final decision on revenue, which I find problematic. But as we went through last fall meticulously, there isn't any other way to do it based on the assessor's work and all the things Robin has described. There just wasn't any other way to make the timeline. I would prefer that we have a public hearing, we make a final decision on revenue before I decide how to spend. Because last year we had a situation where we made revenue decisions based on an assumption, and then we had we had at least one commissioner voted differently than after the fact, and it wasn't necessarily his fault because that's the way the timeline rolled out. But I do think it's a problem, but I don't think there's a solution. So I just want to make that point that I have big decisions to make about spending in a couple of weeks, and you need to know how much money you have before you can decide how to spend it.
Robin, before I get to you, I would thank you for that perspective. And if the public was following your Excel sheet, Robin, and how you calculated this and where all the property taxes go and such, it's like astrophysics. The computation is like landing something on the moon. It is so complex. But what I want to know is what you are proposing, or what you said, Ty, your 1% across the board. Is that option number 3, Robin, or is that a different option?
1% across the board would be option number 3. You would need to pass a resolution of substantial need along with the resolution that increases the levy by 1%.
And that is, if that were to be the case and it's approved subsequent to a public hearing, that would potentially raise property taxes 13 to 15 a year?
It would.
Dollars?
Making a ton of assumptions.
Yep.
For the homeowner whose average home is currently $395,000 and their new assessment was $423,000, it would, and nothing else changed, it would raise their property taxes by about $15 next year for the general fund.
Okay. Now you.
Sorry to put all those caveats in it, but people need to understand that this is a moving target right up until next January.
Okay.
And that is so. And I know that Robin has expressed this in many occasions. It's just the increase on the general fund. That may not be a true increase on the property taxes to all the citizens, because they have many other junior districts which they have approved on which the increase may be different for each property. So I'd like to really emphasize what Robin has stated in a couple of occasions. This is just to the general fund.
Right, not the road fund, conservation future
portion. Because my property taxes aren't $473 a year. My property taxes are about $3,000 a year because I pay into the state that supports the schools, the fire district, the city, the transportation district, the county. 4 funds in the county. There's a cemetery district that some people pay into. There's the library district. All these districts are going through the same calculation that we're talking about right now.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Gary.
Okay, say my property taxes are $5,000 a year, and you came out with a calculation that was either going to raise my property taxes by, I know that now 5,000 is maybe a little more than what somebody else is paying, but I'm trying to figure out, it's going to go up by $13 under one scenario, and it's going to go up by $15 under another scenario?
No, Commissioner, only the general fund for the county will go up by that.
Right.
Yeah, all the rest of them will go up accordingly to their assessment.
This is the part we talked about last week that I cannot calculate for other people. However, there is an amazing new tool on the treasurer's website. We're going to put it out along with the calculator about the general fund. But the treasurer has a tax distribution. It's called My Property Tax Distribution Tool on his website. And it is really cool, and it can tell you exactly where your taxes go to all those different jurisdictions. And I believe it can show you exactly what went up in which area.
So based on last week's in-depth conversation, chewing on it for the last several days, and receiving this again for this morning for our discussion, and having this discussion, when I first got this, I circled number 3, option 3, pass a resolution of substantial need. And that's where I am now. Before the public hearing, it may change, it may not, but that's where I am. Go ahead, Robin.
I would like to add something to Commissioner Mentzer's statement on the need to make decisions before you pass the revenue. 2 comments on that. The first is that the decisions that I ask you to make about expenditures in early November are also preliminary. In advance of a public hearing on the total budget that will come in early December, and you will have opportunities to tweak that budget after that public hearing, just like you will for the revenue side. So the expenditure final decisions won't come until after you set the revenue. The other thing I will tell you is just a bit of fun facts, if you will, about property tax. Prior to the passage of the initiative in the late 90s that set the 1% tax, counties could raise the tax by up to 6%, and they set the expenditure budget and then set the revenue at an increase that would support that budget. And that's why you get this sequence of events the way they are, because in the past, counties could increase property tax enough to cover their needs. Now with the 1% cap, expenses grow faster than the revenue can. So that's just a bit of history. If I had a lot of time on my hands, the way I'd spend it is lobbying the legislature to fix the budget laws. But that's a future dream.
So Robert, looking at banked capacity, if the county went to the bank capacity, I could say, oh yeah, we're just going to increase property tax by 0.5% and bank the other 0.5% to be added to a 1 or whatever percent to the future for future. And I could walk out a hero, only 5%, that's great. But that doesn't really address the county's needs. And then it'd be a much stiffer increase perhaps next year or the subsequent years. It'd be a 1.5% increase rather than just a 1.
That's true.
So you're banking it now, not really helping substantially if there's a substantial need. And then it'd be a significant increase down the road. Okay. And I'm not in favor of that. I like that banked capacity, but that's just right here and now. But I have to think down the road as well. Okay. Any other questions for Robin?
So I do have, I haven't heard Commissioner Edwards' position on this. What appears that Commissioner Minster and Commissioner Hutchins provides direction to support the recommendation from staff to consider leading to the public hearing of a 1% that will include the substantial need ordinance for all 4 funds. That includes the general fund or current expense, the road levy, the medic one, and conservation futures. I have not heard from Commissioner Edwards on his position.
Okay, are you ready to hear from me then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that allow us to utilize the banked capacity if we wanted to in the future, which is by December, I guess?
If you did bank capacity, that's for a future year. That's not.
Oh, yes, I know it's for a future year, but I mean, we could implement that, if you will, farther down the road.
If the board increased the property tax levy by 1%, that would leave nothing to bank. 1% is your cap.
I think what he's asking is, no matter what we say now, subsequent to even if we gave direction on option 1, whatever that is, and it goes to the public hearing, we can pick 1 through 4 subsequent to that, the public hearing. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Is that what you're asking, Gary?
Yep, it is.
Yeah, I think that's what he was asking. If leading to the public hearing is a 1% no funds, after the public hearing, I think Commissioner Edwards was asking, is there an opportunity at that point to have a decision on a bank capacity?
Yes.
On the 1%.
And here's where I'm going with this. I'm inclined to go with no increase whatsoever, but if I get convinced that there is a substantial need, but to get to that point, I need to see the trend on total property tax coming in, on the sales tax continuation at the rate it is, at new construction and what that's going to be looking like. And having to do with new construction is our ability to make reduction in regulatory restrictions to encourage new construction. So there's a lot more at play than just saying yes or no on any kind of a tax increase. So I like the banked capacity for a future situation, especially if we're not locked into it for any 1 year. It sounds like it can continue to be moved down the road, if you will, in subsequent years. But for right now, I'm going to say I am not in favor of any tax increase until I get all these numbers closer to being solidified and having a total revenue package. So that's where I'm at. No increase for now, but I'm open to anything that might happen later on.
Commissioner, it would be very helpful if you would give me that list so we could work on having that for you.
What's that, on the property tax, sales tax?
The list of things that you need to be able to make a decision.
Well, I mean, those are some of the main things. I know we have other revenue streams, but I think those are so crucial. The new construction, what the sales tax is going to continue or not. Property tax is going to continue to come in full force. We're going to know that within I don't know, another week, I think. That's the deadline on property tax, I think. And whether or not this board is willing to lighten up on restrictions on allowing people, on getting our economic engine going. I still see the board as hindering the economic well-being of this community through regulatory process. And I'm looking for relief for the people that are out there building, trying to get their restaurant going, the whole thing. So it's getting pretty complicated when you ask for a list, but that's property tax, sales tax, new construction, and regulatory issues that we could change. I mean, we're gonna be talking here pretty quick about doing something about parks and whether or not we're gonna enhance fees or not because of some of these issues. So I could give you a list, but those would be the 4 things that I'm really interested in.
So, Commissioner, I still don't hear your position on the 1% on all funds leading to the public hearing on November 17th.
Well, mine's going to be for no increase whatsoever at this point.
So you're a no on this?
Yes, I'm a no.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Do you have your direction so we can move on to the public hearing then?
Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Okay. Next is the City of Olympia request.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. And this related to the Insane Road. And you heard, you have been tracking this issue for quite some time, I believe in the last 2 weeks. As a matter of perspective, I believe over 4 weeks ago is when the City of Olympia made a decision to go ahead and vacate the RV parking along the Insane Road. And you, the board, received public testimony as to the impacts in terms of emergency response and how that the emergency responders have taken a detour route. They include an additional 4 minutes, I believe, until they can get to the emergency rooms. Following to that, the City of Olympia started taking the steps to implement that, and you heard on the ground, live to date reporting from Keeley this morning. So this particular request, so I received an email which is included on your packet this past Tuesday, October 22nd at 2:09 in the afternoon from Jay Burney, the city manager for Olympia, where he outlines, some of the difficulties of the RB on Ensign Road, as well as he highlights unfortunately the RHC, the Regional Housing Council, doesn't meet until the 27th of this month. In fact, next month in November. So they have the opportunity to bring this funding request. So he directly put a request to the county to provide funding and resources to manage the temporary site and the shooting range parking lot the City of Olympia owns, that is located on Carpenter Road in Martin Way. Almost is adjacent to the county property owned in that location. He was requesting to have a soon as possible decision on what potential funding options the county could have related to this particular proposal. So as a result of that email, I have worked with the staff over the last couple of days, and I appreciate the diligence of Tom Webster and Keely Murno as to what options we can provide related to the request from the City of Olympia. There's some opportunities here as to how we can provide support funding, and this is the gist of today's briefing for you to consider those proposals and see where you'd like to go. There's a lot of questions related to this proposal as well. Tom will walk you through on the paper that he provided to me yesterday, and this is included in your packet, and he will go a little more in detail what that is. It also, as of yesterday afternoon, I received an email from Jay Burney, again, where the City of Olympia received a letter from the Attorney General from Colleen Melody, that's a division chief of the Washington State Civil Rights Division. And I'm going to read you just the second to the last paragraph of that letter. There's a lot of information in there. I'm not planning to go through that, but just to bring you the context and the umbrella of this conversation. She states, finally, I am aware that some residents of the Ancient Road have submitted reasonable accommodation requesting based on disability, additional time to move, or other relief from the October 27, 2020 sweep. I have not reviewed those individual requests. As a procedural matter, however, a sweep that moves forward while those requests are pending will constitute a de facto denial of that request, which may implicate the Attorney General's authority under Washington law against discrimination. To the extent of that denials have a discriminatory effect on residents with disabilities. And she states the applicable RCWs related to that conclusion. So that is the framework, the umbrella of this particular discussion. There's a couple decision points of direction that I would like to get from the board today, considering the urgency of the matter. And at this point, I will leave to Tom to walk us through the paper that he diligently prepared leading to this conversation. Any questions on the background before we move on?
Well, let me start with my statements. Gary, any questions before we begin?
Yeah, just where in that paragraph, it says some of the residents on Ensign Road have submitted reasonable accommodation requests. So they've submitted them to this Deputy Attorney General, is that?
I would assume.
Okay, so they have sent this in. Okay, but he just hasn't had time to review them. But he's speculating that should we move on anything prior to him reviewing them, we'd be in trouble, basically.
He or she.
Yeah.
Yeah, I highlighted that. I'll get to your time in just a second here, but I highlighted that wondering how many, what are the reasonable accommodations based on, and where did they go? Who's reviewing that? Ty, do you have any opening questions?
Just to be clear, this letter from the Attorney General was not submitted to the county. It was submitted to the City of Olympia.
Right.
Okay, just to put in perspective.
Ty, do you have anything?
I don't know who this question is for, but didn't the state sweep RVs off the Deschutes Parkway? And why are they allowed to do that, but City Olympia is not?
So I think the difference would be, Commissioner Menzer, that Deschutes Parkway had a 5-day temporary removal of all vehicles off of that section of Deschutes Parkway so that they could do a budgeted construction project. And when they were finished with that project, the gravel side of that road was deemed unsafe for there to be any parking on it. However, the other side of Deschutes Parkway was available for parking of whatever kind of vehicle. They don't have currently any time restrictions on their parking. That's what the rulemaking's for. So I think that the difference was it was just a 4 or 5 day construction project that they could come back to. I think that's my guess.
So do you have more, Ty?
Not at this point, I guess.
Okay, well, let's listen to staff, but I'm curious if any residents along Deschutes Parkway submitted any requests for reasonable accommodations before they were moved for whatever reason. Who's going to take this, Tom or Keely or Kelly?
Hutch, could I just clarify one of the questions that you've asked?
Yeah.
I am curious. It says, I am aware that some residents, is that 2, and we could go ahead and move everybody else, or it's 4, and we could go ahead and move everybody else until we came up with accommodations to deal with those that fell within the law, so we were doing it all right? Do we know
So just to be clear, the county is not moving. The county is not taking action and moving.
Okay.
Any vehicles. This is, I just give you an umbrella of the issue. The conversation today is trying to address the request from the City of Olympia to the county in terms of supporting their efforts, both financially as well as on resource point of view. The City of Olympia is not requesting the county to exercise any vacation of RV vehicles on Ensign Road. So I'm just painting you the overall picture on this. So the county is not put in the position from the AG's office. It is not a request for the county to do anything other than accommodating a request from the City of Olympia for funding and resources.
Okay, so is Tom, who's going to brief us on this?
I will start, and then Keely will jump in with details. So what I was asked to prepare was a little bit of kind of a sense of what possible funding sources may be available to support the City of Olympia's request. And then Keely and I had some conversations around, even if we identified the funding, how do we implement and who does that funding go to and who can help manage a possible solution? So the initial funding sources, potential funding sources that I'm aware of that we've identified are the 2163 Emergency Fund. And so earlier today, we talked about allocating $60,000 to the City of Olympia for the mitigation of the micro houses. You may recall last year, the board set aside $125,000 from our 2019 program year, 2163 Emergency Fund that was going to be used for a regional stabilization site or a second stabilization site. Those funds are still available and have not been used. So we have $125,000 from our emergency fund from last year that remains unspent. If you approve the $60,000 from this year's emergency fund for the micro houses at the mitigation site, that would there would remain $65,000 available in this year's 2163 emergency fund. As we indicated, those are currently really under the jurisdiction of, well, maybe that's not on the jurisdiction, but the RHC has a role in allocating those funds as well. We also have, we received approximately $1 million from the Department of Commerce back in March as part of the COVID response that we've allocated most of that. We do have about $35,000 to $40,000 remaining of that had been set aside to help with staff costs. Our staff costs in managing that funds have been less than anticipated, so we could reallocate those funds. Those funds do need to be spent by December 31st of this year. The other source is we've received an allocation of a second allocation of Community Development Block Grant COVID funding. The total amount of that grant is $982,247. You have provided initial direction that we want to use that to continue supporting our quarantine and isolation facility and testing activities. So I'm not indicating that all of that funding is available, but this would be an eligible activity under that fund source. So it is potential to utilize a portion of those CDBG funds to support this activity. The final source of money that's also we talked about earlier today, coming for your approval, is the $3.9 million in emergency solutions grant under the COVID funding. That is coming to the county. We have until September of 2022 to spend. Safe parking is not an eligible activity under that program. However, outreach services are. So while the ESG grant could not pay for the safe parking activities directly, it could be used to support some of the outreach services, supportive services to support a safe parking program. So those are the fund sources that we've identified as potentially available to support this request from Olympia. Any questions on any of those fund sources?
You're muted, Commissioner.
This is a document the county produced then, the options.
Yes.
Correct.
Funding, okay. And if we, as we get into this and decide to use some of these funds or how we're going to use them, if we do that, my question would be, what other purposeful use goes unfunded? For example, that makes sense?
So if we reserve these funds for if we use these for other purposes?
Yeah, if we're going to give anywhere out of these funds to help Olympia stand up this safe parking, because they can't do it solo, why do we not spending the money on that to do that. Does that make sense?
Yep. So for the 2 emergency funds, there's no activities that have been identified. So what it means is it limits your ability for the next request or the next emergency that comes up. It reduces the potential to address the next issue that requires funding. But there's no specific activity that's been identified for those 2 sources.
There isn't, okay.
For the emergency housing grant, right now I would look to, we would probably look to reprogram those funds to an activity that's those contracts that we're extending with the CARES monies with the vulnerable populations for family support and CYS. Because these funds can be used in December, we would probably identify and use these funds to pay for some hotel vouchers potentially into November, December to extend our ability to do that, or perhaps to fund the community kitchen or one of those types of activities into December after the CARES money runs out.
And
the CDBG funding we're intending to use for quarantine and isolation and testing. So we could still fund those activities, but it's just a balance of how much would go to testing and the Q&I facility versus this program. So it would be a reduction in those activities. And then the emergency solutions grant, those funds we've not fully developed activities for those. Some of it will be to support the Interfaith Works new shelter and the continuation of some of these shelter services, but I do not believe that these funds would be taking away from any activity.
So we currently have the capacity to help support this effort. Sounds like. Go ahead, Ty.
I understand the email from Olympia, and I fully appreciate the regional nature of addressing these issues, and that Olympia has done a lot of things and they can't manage another site like this. But I'm wondering if there's been any conversation with City of Lacey. They were struggling with RVs. They wanted a solution. Is there a chance to partner with them to try to help Lacey County? And it's right on the border of our 2 with Lacey to try to fashion a solution.
Alexa Keeley can help answer that.
Thank you. Yes, I have been communicating with Rick Walk from the City of Lacey, and they're in the middle of having conversations about what that might look like. So there's nothing solid that I can offer, but I can say that we are in active conversation with staff from City of Lacey.
You have more time?
Not right now.
Gary?
Well, the city can move them. I see that we're not going to be doing that, but the city could move them elsewhere as long as they gave them a place to go and took care of their needs or expenses to move them. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, that is exactly the purpose of this conversation, Commissioner, because the City of Olympia has identified a site on the shooting range located in Carpenter and Martin Way. And the conversation is for the county to help financially support standing up this RV parking. That is exactly the conversation today.
I guess if we've got money available and we could dedicate that money, I'm not against that. I really think they ought to move them up to the Capitol campus myself. I mean, the city has mismanaged this thing for the last 5 years that I'm aware of, and we're not going to get anything done with this whole problem if we continue to hide them out in different areas, out of sight, out of mind. And I'm not crazy about doing it that way, but I do see that we need to play our part, even though this has been mismanaged, because we've got other citizens that aren't guilty of that. But I'm not against spending the money. I am against putting a homeless camp out there on Carpenter Road, I can tell you that. So I'm not thrilled about that location.
So this is on city property, City of Olympia property. No, I'm not talking to you. I was talking to staff, just kind of verifying. And what kind of a barrier is there between the city and the county property on that lot, on that spot?
It's just a road and some trees. So if I haven't been out there for quite some time, but the county's property is fenced by trees, and I don't know. Please help me out if anyone I don't recall there being a physical fence outside of the tree line in a green belt.
The only reason I ask is I'm very willing to support the city in any way we can with efforts monetarily. We don't have staff to manage it, but if we gave them sufficient funding, maybe they could hire somebody if the money can be directed that way. But I just don't want it to surreptitiously become a county issue. If we don't have places for them to go, if they start landing and taking up site on county property.
If I may.
Yeah, please.
I know that the city of Olympia has made a pretty strong request that they not manage it due to capacity issues. But the way that I would look at it is we have a number of contracts with agencies throughout our homeless crisis response system that are doing their work. We're just providing them those funds. I think that if, as one option, we could contract with an agency to run that site. And so it would not be any different than if they're running a shelter or if they're running the whatever program that they're running.
Okay, and is this set to be or planned to be like a short-term effort? Or are they gonna be out there for quite some time, or is it open-ended? Keely, do you know?
My conversations have been that the tone of them have been, this is a temporary solution, but we haven't had any formal conversations. As Ramiro mentioned, that this email came in pretty late in the week last week, and we've been working on it since then. And so, and then with the Attorney General's letter, that kind of threw not necessarily a wrench, but it did make us pause for a second. So we're still having those conversations.
Well, it elevated the issue, and it does say short-term.
Yeah.
A short-term solution, but we don't know what short-term, how that's defined. So it's open-ended. Ty, any other thoughts or questions?
I think it's a good location. It's exactly the location we were looking at for our own project last year. Any location is better than in front of the ER of a hospital. So I think that, you know, acting to try to solve that problem is important. I would like to see what City of Lacey would help us do. If the City of Olympia's got land, is contributing land, and we're contributing a lot of infrastructure money to get things set up, and City of Lacey could maybe provide the funding to contract with for management type of thing, that would be a good tripartite collaboration between the three key jurisdictions. Then that would take some of, you know, it sounds like we've got a lot of the funding sources with CARES money and emergency funds give the county a lot of financial firepower, but we don't necessarily have that ongoing, you know, management capacity that Olympia's developed, but has exhausted. Lacey, I mean, the reason I bring up Lacey is that I sat in their 2-hour public hearing when they tried to set up a place for RV parking. RVs had flooded the parking lot of their city hall, and they were trying to place them out near Cabela's, and it created a firestorm for them, and they never really got the problem satisfactorily solved. So I can't imagine that they wouldn't be thrilled to partner with us and create a solution with, you know, as long as everybody was sort of holding up their leg of the stool. So I'm very interested in pursuing, you know, further discussions about this and doing what we can to hold up our leg of the stool, because I think it's a key issue. I've been harping on the RV thing for the last year. I knew this was going to come to a head, and I knew it was going to need a solution. So I'm glad to see it's getting addressed, frankly.
Will this be coming to the RHC in any fashion or some type of a proposal? You know, on one hand, I support this, just exactly what Ty said, with Lacey contributing. But even if Lacey doesn't, it's supportable. But I just don't want to expose the county's liability down the road. But is this something that's going to come as a request to the RHC, Regional Housing Council?
That's a good question, and I'm not 100% sure. I've not had conversations specifically with Olympia saying they would like to add it to the agenda. I imagine and we can certainly recommend that it be added to the RHC agenda. As the vice chair of that, we can certainly, you can bring that forward as a recommendation. We can include that on the RHC agenda item, but I do not believe that the City of Olympia has submitted this proposal or request specifically to the RHC.
Okay.
But it was, it's just, the timing is an issue. You know, the email that I received from Jay Burney on Thursday, the 22nd in the afternoon, that was before they received the AG's letter yesterday. So it was a different sense of urgency they had. So they were not planning to bring this to the RHC. Now, perhaps, as Keely stated, the AG's letter has put a pause on the plan. So will put us in the position to look at this proposal a little more in detail in coordination with the Regional Housing Council, as you suggested, including City of Lacey as part of the conversation. And the RHC is, I believe, the umbrella in which these conversations can occur, particularly, although this is in City of Olympia's property, is in Lacey's UGA. So I do believe they have a vested interest that perhaps participate in this conversation.
Yeah.
So, but I do have a proposal before you move on away from this item, just to make sure that I have you on this. And I do believe that we need to participate in finding a solution. It is a regional issue, and I think we have capacity that perhaps we can support the City of Olympia on this effort. So my recommendation for you is to consider using the emergency funding left over from 2019 for $125,000, for you to support using the remainder 2020 emergency funding for $65,000, for you to consider using the emergency housing grant for $40,000, and out of the CDBG CV money to set aside $100,000 to continue this effort, and also to use $100,000 from the Emergency Solutions Grant, CV, that you just considering approving this afternoon. So that will bring our global contribution from the county to this effort of $530,000. And my suggestion will be to coordinate with the City of Olympia, whether it's a direct allocation for this to the city, for them to start implementing, standing up this site, or maybe finding a different way as to how this contribution should be. So that's my recommendation for you today. And again, this is a recommendation, and certainly we'll bring this item to the RHC next meeting. But I believe this will be in direct response to the city manager as to how the county could support financially this effort.
Romero, what was that total?
If my math doesn't steer me wrong, it's 530,000.
530, okay.
I have a question on your math.
Yes.
I thought that first number, the 125,000 that you gave, I thought we already spent 60,000 out of that earlier.
That is number two, the 2020.
I don't know. I don't know that.
No, that's I'm trying to clarify. What you were talking about is the second item is the 2020-2163 emergency funds. The 2019 is a carryover from last year.
Well, that isn't the way I thought I thought we removed 60,000 from 125,000.
Okay, so let me go back. On item number two, the 2020-2163 emergency funding, it was set aside $125,000. If you take the $60,000 that you're talking about, the remainder is $65,000.
Okay, so we didn't spend any of the 125 out of the 2019 fund.
Yes.
We did not, right?
Yep.
Is that right?
That is correct.
And
you did. So you may remember that that fund was actually $200,000 initially, and you did give 75,000 of that to United Way earlier this year as part of the COVID emergency issues plan. So there was 200,000 that's been reduced to 125,000.
Okay. Now, I do have a question on the location and whether or not, why can't the City of Olympia, I know parking or getting emergency vehicles through on Ensign Road is a big deal to the community out there. Why couldn't we require those vehicles to be parked farther off the road on the right of way? There's probably a 60-foot right of way or more, and force them at least temporarily to open that space up so emergency vehicles can get through when needed as a first step to do something. I think allowing these people to do kind of whatever they want is not is not beneficial towards the outcome on this whole thing.
Yeah, the county cannot exercise that strategy, Commissioner. Is within the city of Olympia boundaries. And I believe there is some, the sidewalk is next to all what is going on. So, so it's not just about moving within the county, within the right of way, but again, even if it was the possibility, the county will not be in the position to exercise that option.
So if we were to say, as a board, give direction, yes, let's allot that 530,000 to Olympia to do this, how soon would they be moving onto the city property? Because they're being moved today.
Well, how soon goes back to the AG's letter. So it will be how soon this parking can stand up with the amenities required.
Okay.
And I'll say, I think my math was 430,000 on that total.
No, I added the 125, on the 2019 plus the 265 of on the emergency funds for 2020.
Right. Plus the 40.
That is 190. Yeah, you're right. It's 430. Yeah, sorry, I was adding 150 from the CDBG and 150 from the emergency solutions. I'm sorry.
So go ahead, Robin. You had your hand up, and I forgot you.
No, I was trying to check the math.
No, I misspoke. My suggestion was out of the CDBG, set aside 150.
Okay.
And set aside from the emergency solutions, 150.
All right. That gets us to 530. I would also just like to mention that these are one-time funding allocations. So if we make a commitment to ongoing costs, or rather, I fully support the recommendation that we assist Olympia. I just want to be sure that the commitment, if we're committing one-time money, that it's for a one-time purpose. If we're doing an ongoing commitment, we need to know where the funds are coming from in the future.
My recommendation at this point to the board is not to support an ongoing efforts. I believe my recommendations to the board to be responsive on this emergency situation for the city of Olympia. And my suggestion based on the numbers that I provided to you will be $530,000. And if there is any need for additional, that will be a different conversation from the board.
But if we're funding an organization out there to maintain or caretake, that would have to have an ending date on that then. Go ahead, Ty.
Okay, so I have two questions. One relates to that, I guess. One is just, I understand the numbers and the funds, Ramiro, but I want to understand your proposal as it relates to what it is that the contingencies would be or the commitment would be. You're saying that we communicate that we have $530,000 potentially available to do what, under what conditions? I didn't catch the second half of your proposal.
To extend this RV parking in the City of Olympia property located at Carpenter Road and Martin Way. And this allocation should be given to whatever they perceive is adequate to stand this site. And maybe some money left over that can help them to manage this site for 2021.
But we're not taking on responsibility to manage at this point.
At this point, I'm not recommending that to the board. It eventually will be a third party who probably has to manage this. But that will be a coordination with the City of Olympia. At this point, I'm not recommending to the board take the responsibility of managing the site.
Does anybody can describe to me what needs to be done to this site? I mean, with Carpenter and our site, it was like just this escalating list of things that we had to do that just drove the price tag through the stratosphere. Is this site paved or is it different in some way? Or is it going to be the same situation where we start digging in and we realize, oh my gosh, we got to do this, we got to do that because of ADA or
I don't have, but it is different because it's developed, they use for a shooting range. So there is already some parking capacity. So full improved, perhaps not, but it's not the way the current county property on the vicinity is different. It's a little bit better developed.
And my major concern is the eventual breaching onto the county property. Then it becomes an issue.
Well, as you may remember, Commissioner, their county property was set aside to have a regional effort to provide homeless response. And I believe that is still on the table.
I do remember that, and I do know it's still on the table. However, it was over $1 million to get it back up to get it up to standards, and we're not there yet.
What kind of septic hookup do we have available up there?
I think the range is on, maybe it is on septic. I don't think it's on sewer, but they have water and power.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea. They've got, over by the old city hall, they got a great big parking lot over there. Let them put them over there. We can help them financially, but I am adamantly opposed to them moving out into the county. I don't care whose property it is on.
That is within the city, that's the City of Olympia's property.
I know it's their property, but it's in the county, on the unincorporated area of the county.
So my suggestions for you today is to consider the request from the City of Olympia for the county to support in funding for this effort. I don't have any options for you in terms of whether we can suggest any other locations for parking.
You have a thumbs up from me.
Thumbs down from me.
There's 2 thumbs up. Okay.
And I would just like to add, on especially the CDBG, we cannot grant that money. We cannot contract money to the City of Olympia. So whatever that solution is, we will need to contract with a provider, at least for the CDBG and maybe also for the ESG dollars. There's some specific requirements. So anyway, we can work out those funding details, but just be aware that some of those funds we may not be able to provide directly to the City of Olympia.
Thank you.
And that's something that'll have to have an end date on it, that I would think. There's no ongoing revenue to support staff. And I still just want to throw out as a caveat, we need to protect the county property as well. Go ahead, Ty, you had your hand up.
I just want to make clear, my thumb is up on a very preliminary basis. I'm going to want to hear a lot, I'm going to continue to reevaluate my thumb's position based on ongoing details as this evolves. At this point, I'm willing to engage in this discussion and put this money on the table, but I haven't heard enough to make me feel confident that this is the right thing, but I think it might be.
I'm a bit dodgy about it as well, and we haven't heard back from Lacey too, what they might be doing. Go ahead, Romero.
So let me see if I can verbalize my response to the City of Olympia. So the majority of the board has decided to support finding supplemental parking to the RVs located in Ensign Road on the tune of $530,000 on a preliminary basis. And I can describe the sources of funding and some of the requirements that each funding source could bring to the table. Also, the board the majority of the board would like to have a conversation at the regional level at the next RHC to make sure the other local jurisdictions can be part of the solutions in the long term. This initial allocation at this point is a one-time, and the county is not committed for a long term beyond what is stated on the amount.
I would like to ask Tom Keeley or Shelley if they feel that moves the ball forward in an appropriate way based on what they think the situation is.
Go ahead, Keeley.
I feel that it is. I feel that, even if we consider it, some of the conversations that I've had with Tom have been, we have a cold weather shelter shortage coming up. And if we consider this an effort that spans just the cold weather shelter season, that is helpful. And so I feel that it's doable. I feel like time limits are doable. I'm doing some research on some other parking programs. The fund amount is doable. I'm speaking with some potential operators that are already contracted with the county that could potentially create a different so we've got a lot of balls in the air, and I feel like it is in good faith and with the city of Olympia and helping to support the growing unsheltered folks in our community.
I would like to say one thing, that I think we're making a mistake by giving up all of our funds in case we have an additional emergency that we have to deal with. I don't see why we have to give it all to them right now. Give it to them incrementally if you're going to do it, so that you hold somebody accountable. Throwing money at problems has never been the answer.
So Romero, you're formerly of Public Works. Does the county own the concrete? Do we have concrete barriers that we own? And can we block off that road so nobody gets confused as to where they're supposed to be parking?
Certainly that is an option. I don't have a visual.
Okay.
I'll get to the point, but certainly that will be an option the county on its own can exercise.
All right, thank you. Anybody going around the room here? Anybody else have anything on this topic? Shelley, Tom?
I'll just add that I think that this is a really important step to support relocation from this current site. Wearing my administrator of your Board of Health hat, the Board of Health has jurisdiction over the health, safety, and access to health care at the current site. And I think that it is urgent that we take action. So I think this is a good step for the BoCC to take.
Okay. Anyone? I don't see anybody with their hands going up. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Just one comment, responding to Commissioner Edwards' point. I think it's somewhat arbitrary, the jurisdictional lines. If you drive down Martin Way as a citizen of Thurston County, you have no idea if you're in Olympia, UGA, County, Lacey, UGA, or City of Lacey. That jurisdictional line changes as you go down Martin Way. The point is that it's in an appropriate area of the county in the sense that it's developed, it's got transit, it's got services. So whether you call it, whether it ends up falling within somebody's UGA or the unincorporated county, it's in an appropriate spot versus throwing it in an inappropriate rural area of the county. So I think that's the key distinction, not necessarily exactly what the jurisdictional boundary is there.
Okay. That's enough on that topic. It sounds like we've exhausted that. Are we going to jump into animal services, or are we going to hold that?
Considering the time is 12:09, I can probably delay this item for next week.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, it is nearly 10 after 12, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much, and we'll be back at 2 o'clock.
Thank you.